The mysterious SOS, far on the edges of human space, where the stars seemed dimmer and the silence of space grew deeper, a small research colony named Stratus 9 operated in isolation. It wasn't a major hub or a thriving city, but its location at the fringe of explored space made it ideal for studying distant cosmic phenomena. The people at Stratus 9 were experts in fields like astronomy, geology, and physics, investigating the strange mysteries of the universe that no one else had the time or resources to study. It was peaceful, calm, and far away from the bustling centers of human activity. But one day, the peace was shattered. The distress signal came in as a series of fractured, static-filled words, barely reaching the communications team at a nearby space station. The usual signals they intercepted were from passing ships, routine transmissions, or occasional bursts from deep space. But this one felt different. The signal had a sense of urgency to it. Something wasn't right. "Captain, you need to hear this," called Mira, one of the lead engineers on the nearby space station. She was at her station when she picked up the unusual transmission. She quickly patched the signal through to Captain Alden, the commander of the ship Lyra 9, which was stationed close to the area. Captain Alden, still sipping his coffee from the morning briefing, leaned forward at the sudden shift in Mira's tone. Something about her words made him pay attention. There had been whispers in the fleet about strange happenings at the outer colonies, but no one had thought much of it. These were small, insignificant outposts. But now Mira's voice crackled with something far more unsettling. The transmission flickered on the screen, distorted at first, but the message was clear enough to understand. "This is Stratus 9. We are under attack. Unknown enemy, too powerful. Please, send help. Coordinates." Then the signal cut off. Captain Alden's heart skipped a beat. The message had sounded desperate, terrified. It was rare for anything serious to happen at these distant colonies. Pirates, maybe, or the occasional malfunction, but an unknown enemy. That was not typical. "Did we get any more of the signal?" Alden asked. Mira worked quickly, trying to regain a connection. The static made it difficult to hear clearly, but a few more words slipped through the noise. "They've breached the outer defenses, coming from. No match. We air." The signal vanished again, leaving the crew with nothing but silence. Mira's fingers flew over her console as she attempted to track the source, but the signal was already too weak, its origin too far out to pinpoint with any certainty. "What do we do now, Captain?" Mira asked, looking up at Alden. Her face was pale, a mix of confusion and growing concern in her eyes. Captain Alden knew that every second counted. If this wasn't a false alarm, humanity might be facing something far beyond what they were prepared for. Stratus 9 was far away, and their distress signal had been weak. It was clear that whoever, or whatever, was attacking them was more than capable of causing this kind of disruption. "We need to investigate," Alden decided, standing up from his chair. "We're not going to sit here and wait for more signals. Prepare the ship for immediate departure. Let's get to Stratus 9 and find out what's going on." Alden turned to the rest of the crew, who were already moving to their stations. There was no time to lose. The Lyra 9 wasn't a warship, but it was one of the fastest ships in the fleet, and that would be enough. At this point, no one knew what they were up against, but Alden couldn't risk letting whatever had happened to Stratus 9 go unanswered. If this was an attack, humanity needed to act now before it spread to other colonies. As the Lyra 9 powered up and prepared to depart, the crew remained on edge. They had no idea what awaited them, but the fear in that last broken transmission was enough to shake even the most seasoned officers. Alden walked to the bridge, staring out at the distant stars. The cold emptiness of space seemed far more ominous now. The silence was suffocating. Mira worked at her console, tracking the coordinates of Stratus 9. The ship moved quickly through the darkness, with only the low hum of its engines filling the air. The sense of urgency grew with every passing minute. The crew had heard rumors of strange things happening at the outer edges of space. Disturbances, missing colonies, and even whispers of attacks. But no one had ever truly believed any of it. Now, as the ship neared Stratus 9, the possibility of an actual threat seemed all too real. "Captain, we're coming up on Stratus 9's last known location," Mira said, her voice filled with worry. "There's nothing in sight. No debris, no signs of battle. Just silence." Alden's brow furrowed. Silence wasn't what he had expected. The lack of any trace was more troubling than anything. Either the attackers had destroyed everything and left, or worse, something more sinister was at play. "Keep scanning," Alden ordered, his voice steady but filled with the tension that gripped him. "We'll find them. Prepare for anything." As the ship's sensors began sweeping the area, the crew was on high alert. They had no idea what they were about to face, but they knew it was going to be dangerous. The sense of dread hung in the air, and the deeper they traveled into the unknown, the more they realized that Stratus 9's call for help had been a warning that something far worse was coming. Aboard the Lyra 9, the crew continued their search, unaware that this was only the beginning of a much darker story, one that would lead them to uncover an enemy unlike any they had ever faced before. The discovery of the unknown enemy. The Lyra 9 cut through the stars, moving faster than most ships could manage. Its sleek design and powerful engines helped it close the distance between them and Stratus 9, but the crew couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that had taken hold of them. What was waiting for them on Stratus 9? The faint SOS signal from the colony still echoed in Alden's mind. The broken transmission had barely been a cry for help, more like a desperate warning. As they approached the coordinates where Stratus 9 was supposed to be, the crew couldn't find a trace of the colony. The communication channels were dead, and their scanners showed no signs of life or activity in the area, not even a trace of wreckage from what could have been a brutal attack. The only thing visible was the cold, empty space around them. "Captain, I'm not picking up anything," Mira said, her voice tense as she checked her instruments. "No life signs, no debris. The system is completely dead. It's like the entire colony vanished." Alden's gut twisted with dread. The distress signal had been sent only hours ago. There should have been something, anything, left behind. The fear that something horrible had happened gripped him. This wasn't just an attack. It was as though whatever had struck Stratus 9 had erased it completely. "Keep searching," Alden commanded, standing tall. His gaze was fixed on the empty space before them, his mind racing. The silence of space had never felt so overwhelming. As they drifted into the quiet expanse, Alden noticed the faintest flicker of light, a shimmer in the darkness. His heart skipped a beat. It wasn't the typical glow from a distant star or the faint reflection of the ship's own lights. This was different. The light was irregular, almost unnatural. Mira quickly adjusted their sensors to focus on the source. "There it is," Mira said, pointing to the redouts. "Captain, there's something just ahead. It looks like a ship." Alden's eyes narrowed. A ship? This far out in the fringe of human space. Is it human? "I don't think so," Mira replied, her voice uncertain. "I'm not seeing any signatures that match human technology. It's strange, Captain. It's like nothing we've ever encountered." The crew's hands flew across their consoles, trying to get a clearer image of the object. As they moved closer, the silhouette of the ship became clearer, but the details were hard to make out. It was massive, far larger than anything the Lyra 9 had ever encountered. The ship was a dark shadow against the backdrop of stars, its surface smooth and sleek, almost like a living thing. "Bring us closer," Alden ordered, his voice firm, yet filled with hesitation. They had no idea what they were about to find, but they couldn't turn back now. The Lyra 9 slowly approached the mysterious ship, its massive bulk coming into sharper focus. As they drew closer, a chilling realization began to settle over the crew. This ship wasn't just any enemy ship. It was something much worse. The ship's surface was covered in patterns, markings that didn't resemble anything human. No recognizable flags, no insignia, and most shockingly, no signs of damage. It seemed to have come through the attack completely unharmed. But as they scanned it with their sensors, they realized the true horror. "This isn't just any ship," Mira said softly, her eyes widening. This is a fleet. A massive fleet, just hidden in plain sight. It looks like it's been cloaked, invisible to regular scans until we got close enough." Alden's stomach tightened. The truth was becoming clearer, but it didn't make any sense. How could such a fleet hide without detection, especially in a region so far from the known human territories? "We need to get a closer look," Alden said, determination in his voice. "Prepare to board the ship. We have to find out what's inside." The crew followed Alden's orders, preparing the docking equipment. As they moved closer to the massive ship, the tension on the bridge was palpable. They couldn't just leave this vessel unexplored. The attack on Stratus 9 had to be connected to this ship, and the only way to understand the threat they faced was to get inside. When they docked with the ship, the airlock opened with an eerie, almost mechanical hiss. The temperature inside the ship was cold, colder than anything the crew had ever experienced. As the team entered, their boots echoed through the empty corridors of the ship, the silence oppressive. The walls were smooth and almost organic in texture, as if the ship itself had grown into its form over time. "There's no sign of life," Mira whispered, scanning the area with her handheld device. "But there's definitely something here. The atmosphere is intact, the power's still running, just barely." Alden nodded grimly. "Stay close. We need to find out who, or what, is behind this." As they moved deeper into the dark ship, the crew was struck by the overwhelming feeling that they were not alone. The ship seemed to pulse with an energy that was both alien and alive. It was as though it had a consciousness of its own, watching them as they explored its depths. They came upon a large, circular chamber. The room was dominated by a central console and what appeared to be a series of tubes stretching up toward the ceiling. The entire area was filled with a low hum, a strange mechanical sound that reverberated through their bodies. "This looks like the control center," Mira said, her voice barely above a whisper. "If we can access this, we might learn more about what's happened here." But as they moved toward the console, something unexpected happened. A deep mechanical voice echoed through the chamber, filling the room. "Unwelcome presence detected. Intruders must be eliminated." The crew froze in place. Alden's heart raced as the sound of the voice grew louder, and the ship began to stir, as if it were awakening from a long slumber. The lights above flickered, and the humming sound became louder, more aggressive. And then, before anyone could react, the chamber's doors slammed shut, trapping them inside. The call to arms. The crew of the Lyra 9 stood frozen in the chamber, the deep mechanical voice still echoing in their ears. The doors had slammed shut, trapping them inside. Alden's heart raced as the hum of the ship grew louder, vibrating through the metal beneath their feet. Every part of him screamed to run, but the crew couldn't leave now. They had come this far, and they needed answers. Mira was the first to react. Her eyes were wide with alarm as she scrambled to access her handheld device. "Captain, I'm trying to override the doors, but the system's locked down. It's like we've triggered something deep in the ship. I need time." "We don't have time," Alden said urgently, his eyes scanning the darkened room. The walls seemed to pulse with life, the atmosphere thickening as the voice repeated, "Intruders must be eliminated." "Captain, look," Mira shouted as her device flickered to life, showing a live feed of the ship's outer systems. The display was filled with images of weapons powering up. Large turrets hidden beneath the ship's surface were slowly emerging, and enormous energy shields began to form. "They're preparing for attack," Mira said, her voice trembling. "This ship is preparing to fire on us." Alden's pulse quickened. They were trapped inside an alien vessel, and now they were about to face its wrath. He turned to the crew, his mind racing for a plan. "We need to get out of here now. We've stirred something in this ship, but we can't let it kill us without answers." He moved quickly toward the control panel. As Mira worked frantically on the system to unlock the doors, Alden's thoughts were already turning to the bigger picture. They had discovered the enemy's hidden fleet, and it was clear now that the threat was far more serious than anyone had imagined. Stratus 9's destruction had been just the beginning. In the distance, the ship's weapon systems hummed to life. The Lyra 9 was still docked, and the crew had to move fast to disengage before they became sitting targets. "Mira," Alden said firmly, "if you can't unlock the doors, can you disrupt the ship's systems? Anything to slow down the weapons." "I'm trying, Captain. It's a highly advanced system, but I think I can jam its comms long enough to give us a window." "Do it," Alden ordered. "We need to get back to the ship." With seconds ticking away, Mira frantically typed commands into her device, her fingers flying across the controls. A series of warning alarms began to blare, and the lights above flickered violently. The ship was beginning to react to their presence. Then, with a sudden hiss, the doors to the chamber opened just wide enough for the crew to slip through. "Go! Go!" Alden yelled. The crew dashed through the narrow gap in the doorway, their footsteps pounding in the cold metallic corridors. Behind them, they could hear the whirring of the ship's weapons powering up. The hum grew louder, growing closer and closer as they raced toward the docking bay. Time was running out. As they reached the docking bay, Alden's eyes locked on the Lyra 9. They were too close to the alien ship's weapons now. If they didn't disconnect and get away fast, the ship would fire, and they wouldn't stand a chance. "Mira, can you cut the connection?" Alden shouted. "I'm trying," she responded, typing frantically. "There's no time to go through the usual process, Captain. I'll have to do it manually." The crew held their breath, watching as the Lyra 9 was still docked to the alien ship. Every second felt like an eternity, and the ship's weapons were now at full power, targeting their position. The dock was starting to tremble under the pressure of the impending fire. With a loud bang, the docking clamps released, and the Lyra 9 began to pull away. Mira had managed to sever the connection, just in time. The Lyra 9 shot forward, narrowly escaping the targeting lock of the alien ship. But just as they thought they had made it out, the ship's weapons opened fire. Brilliant beams of energy shot out from the massive turrets, streaking across space toward them. "Evasive maneuvers," Alden shouted. Now, the Lyra 9 swerved sharply, its engines pushing it out of the line of fire. The crew's hands gripped the console, as every second felt like a battle for their lives. The alien ship's firepower was overwhelming, and the Lyra 9 had to fight with everything it had to stay ahead. "We can't outrun them forever," Mira said, her voice tight with fear. "Their weapons are too powerful. If we don't get help soon, we won't make it." Alden knew they couldn't continue this fight on their own. The Lyra 9 wasn't built to take on an entire alien fleet. They needed to get back to human space, send a distress signal, and rally every possible ship they could. Humanity's ultimate force, their most powerful fleet, would have to be called into action. This was bigger than just one colony, bigger than Stratus 9. This was a war. "We need to call for backup," Alden said, his voice steady but filled with resolve. "Mira, send a message to command. Let them know what we've found and what we're up against. We need humanity's annihilation force." As the Lyra 9 zoomed through space, narrowly avoiding more blasts from the alien ship, Alden knew that this would be a fight like no other. The threat wasn't just one ship, it was a whole fleet, hidden away for far too long. And now, humanity would have to answer the call. They were the last line of defense, mobilizing the ultimate annihilation force. The Lyra 9 raced through the vast emptiness of space, leaving the deadly alien ship behind, but not by much. The hum of the ship's engines and the distant sounds of its systems made the tension in the air palpable. Alden stood at the helm, his mind focused on one thing: survival. They had narrowly escaped, but they couldn't outrun the enemy forever. The alien fleet had shown its deadly capabilities, and the Lyra 9 was not designed to fight an entire fleet. "We're losing time," Mira said, her voice filled with urgency as she worked the communication systems. "I've sent the message to command, but it'll take some time for reinforcements to arrive." Alden nodded grimly, his mind racing. They couldn't just sit and wait. Stratus 9 was already gone, and the alien threat was not slowing down. The whole galaxy was at risk. But humanity had something the aliens didn't: strength, unity, and the ability to adapt. And if there was one force that could stop this alien invasion, it was humanity's Annihilation Force. The Annihilation Force was a legendary fleet, an elite group of warships that had been constructed decades ago, during a time of intense galactic unrest. They were humanity's most powerful ships, each one equipped with devastating weapons capable of wiping out entire enemy fleets. But there was one major issue. The fleet hadn't been activated in years. The ships had been mothballed, their crews disbanded, and their systems deactivated. No one had expected them to be needed again, until now. "Captain, we've just received confirmation from command," Mira said, her voice cutting through the tension. "The Annihilation Force is being mobilized, but it'll take time to assemble. We need to hold out until they arrive." Alden's jaw tightened. "We don't have time. We can't just wait and hope they get here in time. We need to buy humanity more time, and we need to do it now." He turned to his crew, their faces grim with the weight of what lay ahead. "We're going to need every ounce of firepower we can get. I'm sending a distress call to every nearby fleet. We'll build a defensive line as best we can." The crew worked quickly, their fingers flying across their consoles as they sent out messages and coordinated with other ships in the area. Alden knew it was a long shot. The alien fleet was massive and organized. But humanity was resilient, and the call for help had already begun to spread. "We've already begun coordinating with nearby fleets," Mira said, glancing up from her console. "The response has been mixed. Some ships are already en route, but they're a long way off." Alden clenched his fists. The Lyra 9 wasn't built to hold the line against the alien threat. They needed more firepower, and fast. But as the crew continued their work, Alden found himself staring at the stars ahead, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Humanity had faced threats before, but nothing like this. The aliens were unlike anything they had encountered: advanced, ruthless, and relentless. But as he looked at his crew, Alden knew one thing: they couldn't give up. Not now. Not ever. "Prepare the ship for combat," Alden said, his voice filled with determination. "We're going to need every advantage we can get." As the crew made the final preparations, the Lyra 9 veered off course slightly, heading towards a nearby military base in the hopes of securing additional weapons and supplies. Time was running out, and the alien fleet was closing in fast. They couldn't wait any longer. The battle for the galaxy was about to begin, and humanity's ultimate force would have to be activated. Hours passed in tense silence, the Lyra 9 continuing its journey toward the military base. As the ship hurtled through space, Alden's thoughts were occupied by the upcoming battle. The Annihilation Force would soon arrive, but could it arrive in time to stop the aliens? In the distance, a small fleet of human ships began to appear on the scanners. The reinforcements were coming, but they were still too far away. Alden's resolve hardened. If they had to fight alone until the Annihilation Force arrived, they would. It was a fight they couldn't afford to lose. As they docked at the military base, Alden rushed out to meet with the commander stationed there. The base had supplies, weapons, and additional ships ready for deployment. It wasn't enough to stand against the alien fleet, but it was something. Every ship, every soldier, every fighter mattered now. "Captain Alden, we've been expecting you," the base commander said as Alden stepped into the command room. "What's the situation?" "We've made contact with the alien fleet," Alden said, his voice grim. "They're unlike anything we've ever faced. We need every ship you have. We need every weapon you can spare." The commander nodded, his face serious. "We've already dispatched the first wave of reinforcements, but it'll take time for the full fleet to mobilize. We'll need to hold off as best as we can." Alden's eyes narrowed. "We won't have time to wait. We need to buy humanity more time to organize. If that means throwing everything we've got at the enemy, then that's what we'll do." With the base commander's agreement, the Lyra 9 and the newly secured reinforcements began to form a defensive line. Ships moved into position, their weapons systems coming online, ready to defend humanity's last hope. But the alien fleet wasn't far behind. As they prepared for battle, the crew of the Lyra 9 knew one thing: humanity's ultimate force was on the horizon. But until then, they would fight with everything they had. The galaxy was on the brink, and there was no turning back now. The final battle. The moment of truth had arrived. The alien fleet, vast and intimidating, loomed ahead, its warships gliding silently through the cold, black void of space. The Lyra 9, along with the newly assembled human fleet, stood ready, positioned in a tight defensive formation. The weapon systems were armed, shields were activated, and the crew's hearts were heavy with the knowledge of what was about to unfold. The fate of humanity hung in the balance. "Captain, they're moving in fast," Mira said, her voice tight with urgency. She had been monitoring the alien fleet's movements, and it was clear that the enemy wasn't wasting time. They knew they were outnumbered, but the humans had to make their stand now. Every second counted. Alden's eyes were fixed on the large screen in front of him, watching the movements of the enemy fleet. Their ships were sleek, and their weapon systems were advanced, far beyond anything humanity had ever faced. But they had something the aliens didn't: a resolve to protect their home, their people, and their way of life. "We won't back down," Alden said, his voice filled with determination. "We're going to make them regret ever setting foot in human space." The first blast from the alien ships came without warning. A massive energy beam shot out from the lead ship, tearing through the vastness of space and slamming into the defensive perimeter of the human fleet. The shockwave shook the Lyra 9 to its core, but the ship held strong. "Shields holding," Mira called out, her hands moving quickly over the console. "We're taking hits, but they're holding for now. But it's not going to last if we don't fight back." "Return fire," Alden ordered. The human ships retaliated almost immediately, firing everything they had. Laser beams, missiles, and railgun rounds shot through space, aiming for the alien ships. But the enemy was well prepared. Their ships dodged and returned fire with deadly precision, tearing apart smaller vessels in the human fleet. Alden's heart sank as the first human ship was destroyed. The explosion lit up the dark void of space, a silent testament to the overwhelming power of the alien forces. But he couldn't afford to mourn. They needed to win, or it wouldn't matter how many ships they had. "Reinforce the left flank. Get our heavy artillery to the front," Alden barked. His crew scrambled, adjusting the positions of their ships, trying to hold their ground. The battle raged on, chaos and fire filling the air. Explosions shook the space around them as missiles and energy beams collided. The Lyra 9 weaved through the conflict, its smaller size and agility offering some protection against the larger, more powerful alien ships. But it wasn't enough. The alien fleet's advanced weaponry and precision strikes began to overwhelm the human defense. One by one, human ships were being destroyed or forced to retreat. The pressure was mounting, and it seemed like the enemy's victory was inevitable. But Alden refused to give up. "We can't let them break through," he shouted. "Focus fire on the lead ship." The Lyra 9 took a dangerous risk and dove toward the center of the alien fleet, dodging blasts from the powerful ships. The crew braced themselves as they charged forward, knowing this might be their last chance. The alien lead ship, A colossal warship brimming with power was their key to winning. If they could bring it down, the rest of the fleet would fall into disarray. "Mira, get a lock on their weak point," Alden ordered, his voice tense. "I've got it," Mira exclaimed, her fingers flying across the console. "It's a vulnerable spot in the ship's outer hull. If we can hit it with everything we've got, we might be able to breach it." The Lyra 9 powered forward, racing toward the lead alien ship. It was a gamble, a dangerous one, but they had no other choice. They locked onto the weak spot Mira had found, and with everything they had left, the crew of the Lyra 9 fired their remaining arsenal directly at the alien warship. The explosion that followed was nothing short of catastrophic. The alien ship's outer hull buckled, and a massive blast rang out through space. For a moment, everything went silent. The remaining alien ships faltered, unsure of what had just happened. The entire human fleet watched in stunned silence as the once imposing lead ship of the enemy fleet burned, its engines faltering. "Yes, we did it," Mira shouted, unable to contain her excitement. But the victory came at a cost. The Lyra 9 had taken heavy damage in the process, and the shields were down. The human fleet was still outnumbered, and while the alien fleet had been thrown into disarray, they hadn't been defeated yet. The battle wasn't over. Alden gritted his teeth. "Stay focused. We've got them on the ropes. Don't let up now." The remaining alien ships began to retreat, their once coordinated movements faltering. The loss of their flagship had thrown their command structure into chaos, and the remaining ships began to scatter. This was humanity's chance to finish what they had started. "Full speed ahead," Alden shouted. "Chase them down. Let's finish this." Humanity's fleet pushed forward with renewed determination, picking off the alien ships one by one. The tide of the battle had shifted. The Lyra 9 and the remaining ships closed in on the alien fleet, their weapons dealing devastating blows. The remaining enemy ships fell quickly, their coordination shattered by the loss of their flagship. Finally, the last of the alien ships was destroyed, drifting lifeless in the vast emptiness of space. The battle was over. The human fleet had emerged victorious. The crew of the Lyra 9 stood in stunned silence, the weight of what they had just accomplished sinking in. They had faced an enemy unlike anything humanity had ever known, and they had won. But as Alden looked out into the stars, he knew this was only the beginning. There would be more threats, more challenges, but for now, humanity had proven something important. They would not be easily defeated. "We did it," Mira said quietly, a relieved smile creeping onto her face. Alden nodded, his gaze fixed on the battlefield. "We did, but we've just begun to scratch the surface of what's out there. Stay ready. The galaxy has more to show us. Victory and a new dawn." The final echoes of the battle faded into the cold void of space. The vast emptiness, which had been filled with blinding explosions and laser fire just moments ago, was now eerily still. The last of the alien fleet had been obliterated, drifting helplessly in space, their ships shattered and defeated. The crew of the Lyra 9 stood in stunned silence, the magnitude of their victory beginning to sink in. Alden leaned back in his chair, his face drawn with exhaustion, but his eyes filled with a quiet satisfaction. They had faced an impossible enemy, an overwhelming force unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. And they had won. Against all odds, humanity had triumphed. "We did it," Mira whispered, still in shock. She looked out at the view screen, watching the final enemy ship crumble. The space around them was now free of the alien menace, but the wreckage of the battle was a grim reminder of what had been lost. "We did," Alden replied, his voice firm but tired. "But we can't forget how close we came to losing it all." The crew of the Lyra 9 exchanged weary but relieved looks. The destruction of the alien fleet meant that humanity had survived, for now. But Alden's mind kept turning to the bigger picture. They had won the battle. But the war was far from over. The alien fleet had been massive, and it was clear that humanity had just scratched the surface of what lay beyond their reach. A voice crackled over the comms, breaking the heavy silence. "Captain Alden, this is command. We've received your signal. Reinforcements are en route. You've done the impossible. Congratulations on the victory." Alden smiled wearily as he pressed a button to respond. "Thank you, Command. We couldn't have done it without the reinforcements. But there's more. This enemy isn't gone for good. We've only seen the tip of the iceberg." "Understood, Captain," came the reply. "We'll begin sending out recon teams and strengthen the defensive lines. We'll be ready for whatever comes next." The message from Command was reassuring, but Alden's instincts told him the alien threat was far from over. This was just the beginning of something larger, something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. Whatever enemy had been behind the attack was still out there, and it was only a matter of time before they returned. The galaxy had more to show them, and Alden knew humanity had to be ready. "We'll need to prepare for the future," Alden said, his voice steady as he turned to his crew. "This victory is a testament to humanity's resilience, but we can't let our guard down. We've just made a powerful enemy, and we need to be prepared for what comes next." As the Lyra 9 drifted through the stars, the crew couldn't help but feel a sense of unity. They had faced an enemy that had seemed unbeatable, and yet they had stood strong, fought hard, and emerged victorious. Humanity had proven that, no matter the odds, it would not back down. "We'll rebuild," Alden said, his eyes scanning the stars outside the bridge. "We'll regroup, and next time, we'll be ready." As the Lyra 9 moved toward the nearby human outpost to join the rest of the fleet, Alden allowed himself a moment of reflection. The battle had been fierce, and the losses had been heavy, but humanity had survived. They had been tested and found worthy. They had shown the universe that humans would not be pushed aside, that they would not give in to fear. No matter what the future held, humanity would continue to fight. "Captain," Mira said, breaking his reverie, "we've got another signal coming in from the fleet. It's from a nearby colony. It looks like another distress call." Alden's eyes narrowed. Just as he had feared, the battle was only the beginning. There would always be more to face, more threats lurking in the vastness of space, but humanity had just proven that they could rise above the darkness, that they could overcome any challenge that stood in their way. "Prepare the ship," Alden said, his voice resolute. "We'll answer the call. We're not done yet."